Right, thank you so much. This is the overview of the presentation. We are going to introduce the subject plan. We're also going to speak to the summary of emerging issues from the report of study. Then we'll talk to the strategy for development for that particular subject plan. Then we'll go to the policies and proposals. There is an item on development control policy of that area, which we're only going to speak to in brief, and then the phasing, implementation, and monitoring, and then, of course, the building use groups, which formulate the development control policy. To our policy makers, our councillors, the study area that we are focusing on today is the one that is marked in red. That's where you find your suburbs, your Khumalo, and your Parklands. And the rest of the city, I think we are all familiar with it, where to your far northwest, you see your Country Park, and then your Mkanwini and Benside. So the acting town clerk and the assistant director have mentioned that the local development plans are established through the RTCP Act of 1996, and local planning authorities like the City of Bulawayo were mandated to prepare master plans and local plans. A master plan is the broader document of what we are seeing today on our desks. A master plan will be broader in terms of uses, in terms of policies, but each master plan now must have quite a number of local development plans based on the need and the locality area. Then sometimes there is need for a local subject plan. A local subject plan focuses on a smaller area, but with a particular subject. In this case, the main subject there is the commerce or the commercial issues that are now starting to emerge around Parklands, suburbs, and Khumalo area. Then, like the assistant director has mentioned, that the report, the local plan has two parts. The first part is the report of study. The report of study is the situational analysis of the planning area, which then informs the written statement or the policy proposals. So the situational analysis was done sometime. It was presented to the last council. The findings were presented to the last council, the management, and all the stakeholders that the assistant director spoke about. Then today, we are doing the consultation to the policymakers, and the consultation are based on the written statement. The written statement are the policy proposals based on the findings from the situational analysis. So like I've said, stakeholders were consulted on the report of study, and the policymakers suggested some of the proposals that you will see this morning. So the summary of key planning issues that emerged from that study were that in terms of zoning, the planning area covers a portion of local development plan number 5, which encompasses the area Parklands, Khumalo, suburbs, Pato Nest, and other areas. So this local subject plan falls under that local development plan or under that study area. The proposed plan seeks to incubate and accelerate commerce in that region by zoning portions of the area which were previously residential to accommodate mixed uses. Then the local setting, the planning area is strategically located next to the CPD, which is less than a kilometer when you are looking at suburbs area. The planning area is also located in close proximity to the prominent tertiary institutions like NAST, Poly, and is bounded by low-density residential areas, which are Parkview, Kilani, and Woodlands. So your Parkview, Kilani, and Woodlands will form the abutting suburbs to the study area. In terms of the physical features, a large part of the study area its physical features render themselves suitable for development. Hence, the planning area can easily be surveyed or supplied with reticulated water supply, as you would see when we do the presentation. So when it comes to the environmental suitability, the planning area has relatively abundant active and passive open spaces. So the active and passive open spaces, if you look at this map and where the red thing is pointing to, the green will be your active open spaces for those that have maps. So the darker green will be your active open spaces. Then your lighter green will be your passive open spaces. So as you can see from the study area, there are quite a number of these open spaces. There is also a mining pit at Khumalo, which has to some extent severely degraded the land, and it has rendered that portion. Those of us that are aware or that are knowledgeable to the study area, the Khumalo pit is somewhere there, and those of us that have seen it, it's something that has led to a lot of land degradation. Then there are some open spaces in these spaces that we have spoken to, which are prone to pollution in its land. They are being polluted in quite a number of ways, especially our Centenary Park, our museum, and these other open spaces that we've spoken about. And in terms of land ownership, the greater part of the study area consists of privately owned land, with a few proportions owned by the government. There's a few, like you will see here, most of the land, the color red there, this area is state land, it's owned by government. This is where you would find your school, KG, I think is it KG6 or KG4, King George, then your meteorological services department, and then the flats somewhere there. Then opposite, of course, is the barracks area. So then there are quite a number of health facilities, privately owned though, quite a number of schools, post office, institutional housing, and media studios. Then, if you can move to the next slide, I think this thing is... In terms of land use, the planning area is predominantly zoned residential, complemented, of course, by the public institutions, commercial buildings, and both passive and active open spaces, like we have said. The suburbs area has substantive growth with regards to commercial activities, hence the need to rezone most of the area into a mixed use for both residential and commercial. So what we ascertained, councillors, when we did our report of study, we found that whilst the area is zoned residential, we are now seeing quite a number of commercial uses which are starting to appear in the suburbs area, Parklands and Khumalo, but mainly it's predominant in the suburbs area. So you would find now your World Vision offices, they have moved there. Your other offices, your security companies, your hotels, your lodges, quite a number of, even your schools, you've got these upcoming ECD learning centers. You now find them in the study area. So in terms of planning, we now need to accommodate those because the area was mainly predominantly residential. Then the neighboring land uses which fall under local development plan are bounded by, the area is bounded by local development plan number 4, which is the city area, the CPD. Then local plan number 13, which is the university area, UNAST. Then local plan number 16, which formulates or Ilanda, Malindela, southward, going this other way, Ofamona and Bradfield. Significant immediate neighboring land uses are the Ascot Shopping Center. The Ascot Shopping Center is the area that you would see somewhere here. It's outside the study area, but I think for the purposes of clarity, most of us are now aware ukuthi study area yethu esikhuluma ngayo yiphi. Then in terms of social infrastructure, like I've said, there are educational facilities which range from ECD centers, institutions like tertiary, honors, poly, the other high schools, bars. These schools rely on the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education for planning, coordination and development, but their spatial planning must be done by the local authority. Then we have said, if you can move to the next slide. Then in terms of electrical supply or electricity, the planning area has adequate supply or infrastructure of the electricity, but of course, because of load shedding, it will the stakeholders or the residents noted that they face a lot of challenges or disturbances from some of the power lines that fall off. Then whenever there is wind or heavy rainfall, tree branches entangle the power lines, causing frequent power cuts. Thus, trimming of the branches will eliminate this challenge. However, some have solar to sustain when there are power outages. Then in terms of street lighting, the planning area has got infrastructure for street lighting, but it's no longer working in some of the areas, so they face challenges in terms of street lighting. This has increased robberies and thefts and mugging in the area due to non-functional street lights. It has also become unsafe for people who move at night, but residents noted that from as early as 4 p.m. you get muggings from that area because of the nature of the area, and because you know that the area is characterized by a number of trees, so people will hide from those trees. Let's move. Then in terms of water infrastructure, the planning area has a step water pipeline network with a fair coverage. There are 3 booster pumps stations and a return valve servicing the region. Part of the study area faces challenges in water supply. There is low pressure in some areas, such as those that are found along Ukiak Road and 7th Street, as they noted that water comes, and of course, due to water shedding, it comes at an average of thrice or twice a week. But they then noted that while these other areas would get water, because of the low pressure, properties along Ukiak Road and 7th Street will face these challenges. Then in terms of sewer infrastructure, the area is fully serviced. There are maps which show that the area is fully serviced in terms of sewer infrastructure, which you will find in the report of study, serviced by a reticulated sewage disposal system with no septic tanks in the study area. There is adequate sewer infrastructure. However, looking at the edge of the infrastructure, there is need for upgrading against the intended densification, which we are going to speak to this morning. In terms of road infrastructure, the road network system is well organized with roads following all the road hierarchies from the regional, your Harare Road, to your access roads, which I've spoken about, Ukiak Road or 7th Street. The planning area has 2 regional roads, which are Harare Road and the Joburg Road, which is your Leopold Takawira. While the condition of the roads is fairly good, potholes are seen especially in most of our access roads, such as Heyman Park Road, Duncan, 12th Avenue. It was also discovered that there is a need for speed calming measures on Park Road. So residents noted that most of their roads are characterized by road traffic accidents. Let's move. Then in terms of population, the area is predominant, like we have said, low residential, with about 8,945 residents in suburbs, 2,840 in Khumalo, 2,535 in Parklands. The population is dominantly a Christian society. The majority of the population are black, with a smaller, quite a sizable portion, with them being whites, and Indians and Chinese form the other part of the study area. Then in terms of employment, most of the employment opportunities remain in the city center industrial areas, but we now see the growth of employment centers within the study area. Like we have said, your schools, your ECD centers, your dental surgeries, and other wedding and conference centers and nurseries, and like we have noted. Then in terms of topography, the area is generally flat, which allows for easier access, constructability, and it also encourages further development within the study area. General low gradient of the area is advantageous in that it lowers the cost of construction of new building structures. The area is therefore suitable for residential and commercial development with complex building structures such as flats. Then we have spoken in terms of location. Then in terms of other opportunities, the assistant director noted that there are quite a number of transit corridors. Like we have said, most of in your maps, the ones that you would see with a slashed blue and white, those are predominant transit corridors in our study area. You have got your Leopold Takawira, which stretches from this, from here, just across the city wall. Then we've got Harare Road on the other side. Then we've got 12th Avenue. Then we've got King George area. Those are our transit corridors. These transport corridors, they facilitate faster, smoother, and more efficient transit, and they enhance regional and local connectivity for development purposes. Unlike conventional residential areas like Parklands and Khumalo, you would note that suburbs area, in terms of road network, it has a road network which is similar to that of the CPD. What I mean, it has grid irons in terms of streets aisle. Unlike these other streets which don't have a particular order, which is like the CPD. Ungangena ku CPD, you would note that you would go straight to uziyofika lapho ofika khona, whether it's an avenue, whether it's a street. But with the suburbs, with our suburbs, like Khumalo, it's not the same in terms of our access roads. Let's move to the next opportunity. The other opportunity for development within the study area is the existing infrastructure. Like we have said, the area is fully reticulated with a sewer system. The area is also reticulated with a water system. We also noted electricity. In terms of network, all the networks, your Econet, your Tel1, your Net1 are set up within the area. Then also, in terms of other services, there is existing infrastructure, so it makes it easy for development. Next. Then, in terms of constraints for development, like we have mentioned, there is mining and there are mining dams within the study area. So, unsustainable mining practices in the planning area have been identified. The presence of disused mines and mine dumps at Khumalo suburbs, most of which have been abandoned, reduces the amount of land which is available for development, but also the abutting areas, Okilani, we know there is a lot of mining which is happening there. What that does, it then creates a lot of social ills with Tamakorokoza. When they go there, any area that is associated with the informal mining miners, there is a lot of criminal activities which happen around that area. There is a lot of marking also, but there is a lot of land degradation which occurs. So these are also an environmental hazard, as the pits are left open, the heaps are left there with waste material and are generally an eyesore. When you get to that area, it's not pleasing to look at. You cannot say you are in an affluent suburb like Khumalo or suburbs or even Parklands. The extraction process contaminates air. It also contaminates the water with all these pollutants, putting the local population at risk. Mining also affects surrounding properties, by depreciating the mine value. The moment we have mining, property values, they are also reduced. Then rehabilitation of the land and bringing it to full development, it's a costly exercise. For us to rehabilitate that mine dump, to bring it to a developable, at least land use, is going to be costly. Move. Then we have said, maybe go back to the other slide. In terms of infrastructure, while on the other hand there is adequate or full service of infrastructure, you will find that infrastructure here it's also characterized by sewer base and water pipe base. So also that is informed by the age of the infrastructure. Most of our infrastructure, air, sewer and water, it's now over 40 years. And that's why it's characterized by. So it also speaks to our policymakers to ensure that maybe we have the upgrading of the infrastructure in the study area. Of course, we have mentioned that Gulama power supply issues, some are caused by izhlahla when they fall off, but mainly it's due to load shedding. Let's move. So once that has been done, councillors, we have what we call goals and objectives for the study area. One of the goals speaks to the land. The goal of land is to set aside suitable portions of land in a manner that will warrant efficient and sustainable use of land in the planning area. So the objectives here is to create more land for residential, for commercial, for recreational and institutional use. It's also to plan for every square inch of land to avoid the possible conflict of land use in the planning area. We know that other cities, because they have not planned for their land, people grab this land. If you do not plan for it, people will come and claim it. Also, the other objective is to integrate land use and the public infrastructure, to provide for reclamation of land from those degraded areas. The next objective or goal, is that of the environmental goal. The goal here is to protect all environmentally and ecologically sensitive areas, to guard against depletion, to guard against disturbance of the ecology, and also to guard against degradation, like we have mentioned. The objectives here is to ensure that future development complies with the recommendations of the Environmental Management Agency, specifically the wetlands policy, to minimize land, water and noise pollution in the study area, because there are these other clubs, social clubs. Residents have noted that noise pollution from our clubs now. So also the other objective is to sustainably and resilient address the abuse of active and passive open spaces within the planning area. Our other goal is that of the commercial goal, to promote the development of a balanced range of commerce in the study area. The objective here is to develop a mixed use that strategically positions various business uses in the study area, to intensify selected and attractive commercial activities along all transit development corridors in the planning area. We are saying, councillors, in as much as we are going to allow commercial activities, it's not all commerce that we are going to allow. We would not allow poker stores within the corridor. We don't want people to see that. Not that there's something wrong, but we want something that is going to be attractive. We want something that is also going to be aesthetically pleasing as you pass through, like your assistant director mentioned, or mid-range, about 4 ways as you get into Joburg. Then our other goal is that of the physical infrastructure. We want to ensure that there is adequate provision of physical infrastructure to facilitate the development of the planning area. The objectives here are, number one, to provide high-quality road network system which will enable connectivity, accessibility of the study area and abutting localities. The other objective is to expand and realign our roads to accommodate large traffic and reduce our road traffic accidents. We also want to ensure a safe and inclusive multimodal traffic system that will accommodate all users, not only motorists, but also accommodate pedestrians and also accommodate cyclists. We also want to facilitate for the provision of an adequate and efficient reticulated storage disposal system. We also want to facilitate for the provision of an adequate and efficient reticulated water system and similarly efficient and adequate telecommunication and electrical network system. Our other goal is that of the housing goal. We also want, through this local subject plan, we want to fulfill the Zimbabwe National Human Settlement Policy of 2020, which advocates for densification and a mixed-use enabling environment. The objectives here are that we want to set aside land for cluster housing, which will include specialized townhouses, which will include specialized duplexes, which will include garden flats for development. So development control will come up with conditions which will facilitate for a balance of aesthetics, a balance of form function, which maximizes land values. We're saying, councillors, in the study area, we don't want to see any type of townhouses, but we want to see specialized townhouses, duplexes, which will match the values of the land or the values of the properties that we find in the study area. Not lawana manye esjarukwabona, but we just uguti for the sake of a townhouse. But we want specialized garden flats. We want specialized. So if development control is going to put conditions which will ensure that. We also want to promote mixed-use development to enhance the area's unique identity and development potential, which will encourage economic investment. We are saying residential, nowadays they argue for mixed uses. People must work, people must play, people must have leisure in places where they live. So residence, workplace, the play place must be within the same vicinity. This is also what we want to achieve through this subject plan. We also want to maintain the operative displaced low densities to avoid destroying the character of the such area. So we're saying, while we want to densify the area, but we want also to maintain the character of low density areas. We don't want to destroy the form and character of suburbs, the Khumalo. So hence you would see that we will avoid putting any activities that will destroy that character. We also want to encourage the private sector to participate in the provision of housing and commercial development in the study area. How? By having clear, proper planning and investment opportunities like we are doing. Also want to provide affordable sites that have access to community and social facilities. Our other goal is that of the social services goal. Here we want to provide adequate and appropriate social facilities which meet the needs of residents in the planning area. The objectives here, we want to use open spaces as an element of design and not an isolation of the urban system. Like we have said, we don't want our open spaces to be isolated from our existing uses. We don't want our open spaces to be a nuisance or an eyesore. So we also want to accommodate them as part of the design, like you will see. We want to provide educational and health facilities in accordance with the requirements by the different ministries. Also want to encourage the private sector to participate in the provision of education and health facilities. We want to provide community facilities which are physically, socially and economically accessible to our residents of the planned area. We also want to encourage the development and maintenance of existing recreational facilities. For example, Centenary Park. We are open to suggestions as to how we can improve our Centenary Park. We also want to encourage more active open spaces with a balance, of course, of minimum disturbance, maintenance and compatibility. We want to encourage the private sector to participate again in the provision of our recreational facilities and also ensure that there is proper maintenance of our facilities. Then we have got that goal to a feasibility goal. This one want to guarantee that our planning proposals the local subject plan are financial and technically sound to be inclusive of the capacity of all built environment stakeholders. That is the local planning authority, which is Bulawayo, the private developers, and the government. So we're saying whatever proposals we're having for local subject plan, it must be feasible. It must be something that is financially and technically sound. It must be affordable. It must be something that can be done. It must be doable. Our objectives here want to enable and promote for participation of the local authority, the private sector in the provision of a trunk infrastructure. We also want to seek the local authorities' commitment to the provision of key infrastructure, like our roads where they can. Also want to put in place monitoring and review system to monitor the implementation of the local plan or the local subject plan. Also seek the local authorities' commitment to facilitate the implementation of the local subject plan. While the local authority is committed to infrastructure, but we also want to seek, through you policymakers, a commitment to ensure that the local subject plan is implemented in its phases. Then there are principles which informed the subject plan. There are principles which informed the local plan, the local subject plan that you see in your desk. The report of study, like we've said, the analysis that we did ascertained that the local subject plan must address the following issues. It must address densification. We must have more people occupying a smaller pieces of land as compared to our previous years, be it commerce, be it residential. We also want to unlock land for development, be it commerce, be it recreational, be it residential, where feasible. We also, the local subject plan must speak to local environmental protection. The local subject plan must speak to traffic and transportation issues. The local subject plan must speak to bulk infrastructure. It must also speak to mixed uses and, of course, the pollution. So there are two alternative development strategies, policymakers and councillors and staff. The first strategy or alternative is to maintain the status quo which is existing, suburbs, the Khumalo, the Parklands. The other alternative is to have a mixed use and densified urban development. So, maintaining the status quo, this strategy will involve letting the area to continue to be a residential area, as stipulated in the provisions of the Local Development Plan number 5, with limited ancillary use. So what's going to happen there, policymakers? The only offices that will get there will be AMA offices which only allow for what we call AMA of less than 10 people. You cannot have an office which can accommodate more than 10 people. But it's not what we find in the start area. Already in World Vision, it has got more employees. Also, the major benefit of this alternative is that it is not disruptive to the operative land uses. The major challenge, however, with this alternative is that it becomes restrictive. It will not unlock land for e-commerce. It will not unlock land for residential development. It leaves our residents still vulnerable to the abuse of our open spaces. It also, which promotes dumping and our criminal activities. This option also becomes outdated, looking at the contemporary world that we live in. It also finds itself ineffective as it leaves the city in chaos in terms of residential and commercial provision. It leads to a massive land underutilization, with corridors remaining dull and unattractive. Like the assistant director mentioned, when you get to Harare, when you get to Cecil Drive, you can't tell what to. Unlike with other cities, which at least have tried now to put filling stations, or when you get to Harare, your national sports, you now have that Chinese facility. You can now tell that here I must be somewhere. But when you get to Bulawayo, you don't get that. So this option, if we maintain the status quo, AMA corridors, it will remain down. Then it leads the 8 principles of AMA transit-oriented development will not be achieved. We want to achieve e-walkability. we want to achieve recyclability. We want to achieve mixed density. We also want to achieve compactness and shift. And of course, that multimodal transit. Then the mixed use and densified urban development. This strategy now calls for integration of different land uses within certain portions of the planning area. That is transforming land previously zoned as residential into both mixed uses or into both residential and selected commercial uses. Ama transit corridors, your Bulawayo corridor, Bulawayo Harare, your Bulawayo Harare corridor, your Bulawayo Johannesburg corridor, your 12th Avenue roads or corridor will be revitalized to allow selected commercial uses, which will promote aesthetics, but which will also promote form and function. Certain portions of the study area will be allowed to accommodate office parks to decongest the central business district. It also calls for the conversion of some of AMA passive open spaces to unlock land for residential, recreational, commercial, and ancillary uses. So this strategy will not only induce a renewal within the study area, but it will also induce a renewal to central business district. Because of a monopoly of properties within a central business district, you will find that AMA property owners, they charge willy-nilly in terms of rentals. Not only do they do that, some of them decide not to maintain AMA properties. So what it does, it makes because there is no alternative, AMA service providers, those that need a commerce, they are forced to stay in a central business district. But what happens is that AMA rentals, there is no balance of the supply. AMA rentals, they will remain high. AMA properties are not going to be maintained. So once we apply for e-commerce in the suburbs area, we believe that there is going to be renewal, not only in the suburbs area, but there is going to be renewal in terms of rentals charged in the study area, in the central business district area, but also promotion and maintenance of AMA buildings to suit the nature of the people that need the spaces. So we have put again AMA policies, AMA proposals to achieve the main aims of the local subject plan, and these will be related to each goal. So this is the map that you find in your desk. We felt to so it was better to print out so that when we speak now, we're going to speak to this map now so that everyone is able to see. Let's move. So we've got a zone that we've created. This zone is zone 1A. It's the office park and residential. In your maps, it's the one that is hashed blue and white. So what is happening here? It is proposed that zone 1A, sorry for that error, zone 1A be set aside zone 1A, I think is the one. So I'm speaking to zone 1B there. Sorry for that. The office park and residential is the one that is lighter blue. Light blue, not the hashed one. Eh? So this one, we want to set aside this for office parks and residential areas. So other buildings or uses will either be prohibited or permitted as provided for in the permissibility table. So the intention here is to have the existing residential areas to enjoy AMA user rights out or AMA use rights. But on the other hand, we want to accommodate for its demand for office space within the study area, which is outside the CPT. So AMA office parks will only be accommodated like you see in the suburbs area. You see that it's the only area LA blue. I'm speaking to this area here now. This one. This is the suburbs area. This is where you see a blue layer. This is the blue that we're talking to. So office and residential will accommodate it to suburbs area, and laguma at the back, kuma transit corridors at Joburg Road, So at the back, we are going to also figure Ascot, properties which are at the back are now accommodating office parks, residential. Then you see it again when you go through King George Avenue. You see it, of course, again. They are at the back of Joburg corridor. Then it is proposed that consolidation of stands for more office parks to be encouraged rather than subdivisions. While we are going to encourage subdivisions to a minimum of what is required, we have not reduced minimum subdivisible land requirements to start area. We have maintained the existing. Then we have said that the maximum building height, maybe go back, please go back to that one. The maximum building height shall be 18 meters. But what we have done here, we have said we will go back, the town planning department is going to go back to say what maximum height will suit, for example, Ascot Muse, Lianese Ascot. What is it that should be done? So when we come back, you will note that we would have revised that. But we are saying, unlike where 18 meters was not allowed, now it's going to be allowed and going up. A building intended to be used for any purpose on the stand in that zone must provide a parking bay. Let's move. Then we have got this zone now at Nkulumangayo, hashed blue and white. This zone, we are going to call it this business, specialized shops and offices. The intention here is to achieve sustainable urban form through integrating land use and transport. Commercial corridors and hubs that cater for both residential commerce and the surrounding commercial activities. The aim is to decongest the CBD and attract businesses to the planned area. We propose that a business zone be established which will be used for business offices, for shops. When you get to Midrand, you will see not only do you have car showrooms, but you also have these prominent offices set out along the development corridor. Again, allow me not to speak to the maximum building height. Building lines in the shall be determined by the local planning authority. So, building lines here were saying what's going to happen when we revise issues to Lapana. We are going to have a proper building permissibility table and building lines table. When you decide to go 100% to work stand circle, what does it mean? When we decide to go to building lines, what does it mean? Then, of course, there must be a provision a parking area within the start area, within that zone. Then, a residential zone, which is dispersed low density, in yellow, the one that is predominantly yellow without any hashing. The area is designated as land use 2A. This one is intended for dispersed low density residential development on reticulated sewer. The main aim is to maintain the existing characteristics and form towards less congestion, neighborhood traffic, and high degree of privacy. This zone is set aside for dispersed low density residential. Other buildings or uses to be permitted or prohibited as highlighted in the permissibility table. Here, the minimum permitted subdivision is 2,000 square meters. So we're not going below 2,000 square meters. Whether it's Khumalo, Khumalo is 2,000, suburbs, because currently we allow for 1,500 square meters. This local subject plan has not reduced in minimum subdivisible land. Then 1,000 square meters for Parklands. So height restriction again, let me speak to it once we revise. The minimum permissibility lines, building lines, again, we'll talk to it. Buildings intended for a dwelling house for a single family and other buildings will be erected provided there is an area for parking of vehicles for personal use on site there will be no on-street parking which shall be permitted. Then we have got this other zone which we call cluster, the residential cluster. Zone 2B kuma maps etu is the one that is hashed yellow and brown. Here we propose a lot of setting up of garden flats, like we have said, on various tents, but we have said that these tents or these townhouses must be upmarket asang. The minimum permissibility subdivision will match that of the suburbs area, which is going to be 2,000 square meters. Maximum height for garden flats shall be 3 stories, 1 story for a duplex. No building shall be erected nearer than 6 meters to any street boundary. Height restrictions, like we have said, should be 18 meters with 60% coverage. Provision shall be made for 1 parking bay at least for every dwelling unit to the satisfaction of the local planning authority. Then in terms of traffic and transportation, there is need to improve the traffic circulation, traffic safety, legibility of the road network system in the study area. We have proposed that traffic signs and road markings in the whole study area, especially transit corridors, be upgraded. These provide valuable information to our drivers and other road users, but also revamp the area in terms of aesthetics. What we have noted is that Amasai road signage yetu, ku study area yetu, is now dilapidated. So we have asked for upgrading. The number of walkways and cycle tracks, we have proposed that cycle tracks be established, especially along all transit-oriented development corridors, to promote non-motorized transport networks and also to increase e-transit and activate our streets. We also propose that walkways be established along major transit-oriented development corridors to support walkability preferred by residents in the study area. Our residents, they like walking, they like cycling. We also propose for our wild shelters, which we are saying they must be encouraged so that our cyclists and pedestrians are not disturbed, those who are coming in and out of the study area, especially in Polytechnic and Ascot area and NAST. A lot of our students walk to NAST using that study area. All these will promote the multimodal transport network system. We also propose that most of the roads in the study area be rehabilitated as they are now in a poor and defective condition. Rehabilitation work is needed to restore the roads to the required level of service. Our local distributors must be given a first priority in terms of upgrading. The priority according to suburbs should be the suburbs area, the Khumalo area and Parklands in that order. Rehabilitation should include pothole patching in most instances. Road closure, the Bulawayo Roads and Traffic Bylaws of 1978, including any other amendments that might be there, will apply with regards to road closure and parking and loading zones. The Roads Act will be the Apex Act, which will follow to divert, to declare and close our roads in the planning area. When the road is topped up as shown in the white and hashed in black areas, the public rights therein will be declared null and void as they cease from the date this local subject plan will come into operation. So it is proposed that a portion of PS Road must be stopped to join Windsor Avenue, and the open space is then converted for commercial purposes. I'm now speaking to this area. PS Road is the road which stretches at the back of the hashed Kuarare Road. So this road must be closed. As you see, the one that is hashed black and white, USCT Ivalwe, so that we open more space for e-commerce. It is also proposed that a new road opening be done to connect to PS Road and to 9th Street to create ease, access and legibility. So PS Road will stretch all the way from Usisil, abuye adlule King George Avenue, abuye astretche ehamba parallel to i barracks at the back, but ufika clean. He ends kuma flats lawana our government. So we've proposed a road. So we now need to open a new road which will link 9th Avenue, also suburbs, so that there is kungabi le congestion, abantu bafike baphelele nowhere. It is also proposed that 9th Avenue be opened for vehicular traffic from Machemhlope River to Park Road. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, ngithe 9th Avenue la, long 9th Street. I saw 9th Avenue, 9th Street. Then now I'm speaking to 9th Avenue. It is proposed that 9th Avenue be opened for vehicular traffic from Machemhlope River to Park Road to improve connectivity. Sengikhuluma ngendawo le 9th Avenue lo long 8 lwana ngu9 phambi kwe Milton Primary. Abantwana when they access Polytechnic, we see that it gets to a point if vehicular traffic ama motorists our proceed further ivalekile. So we're saying let's open that area for vehicles as well. Then we make a road with ama shoulders are wide to accommodate abantwana lama cyclists. So this is the area that I'm speaking to right now. So we're proposing that this road be opened so that it improves. With a lot of densification, there is likely to be congestion. This will solve the traffic jungle at Milton. I think those of us that are parents at Milton, we all agree that some of us who stay this side, who stay at suburbs, Kilani, and these other eastern areas, we first have to access the CPD and then to access Milton Primary. But we're saying let's have a way where we can access Milton, we can access all these areas without going first to the central business district. Hence, we are proposing that road. We have spoken of our shoulders so that we don't disturb abantwana besikolo, we don't disturb the cyclists who will be coming in and out, besiye poly, besiye escort, besiye nast. Then we also propose that a road be opened up to connect Park Road and Harare Road with a small portion connecting into 9th Avenue. Sengikhuluma khathesi Harare Road uhamba la, Park Road ngulo. Then I'm saying when you get there, there is no access into Harare Road. So we're proposing that there be a road which connects Harare Road and Park Road with a smaller portion now connecting on 9th Street, lo PS Road, Luana esikhulume ngayo. This will tame the traffic jungle that is envisaged from within the study area and also surrounding areas like Opato Nest. We also propose an extension. It is proposed that 9th Street be extended to connect to George Avenue to increase easy access and legibility. So those of us that see 9th Street, ufika aphelele emoyeni lapha ku green layer. So it doesn't proceed into King George. So we're proposing that we extend 9th Street and access straight. So when you are coming from 9th Street, from the CPD or from Harare Road and using 9th Street, you don't need to come this side, uyengena ku 7th Street or usungena ku King George. So you would now go straight into King George and go Harare Road and go lapho ufuna ukuya khona. So again in that area we also propose a small roundabout so that kungabi lama traffic lights. So a small roundabout is proposed actually for that particular area so that we improve the accessibility. This will also be done to cater for the anticipated increase in the traffic flow from the cluster houses and also from the hospital and the hotel that we'll speak to. Then we also, we also propose that a 15-meter road be opened up to access the new hotel site and other properties to the northwest of Ascot's intersection. So those of us that know Ascot, the intersection, there is a proposed hotel site just close to Iwoki Stadium. Then, because of that hotel site, we have proposed that we have a 15-meter road, which is going to access that hotel site and the commercial activity that we have put there. But also, we have proposed that ku Ascot, kuma traffic lights Ascot, we do away with our traffic lights. We propose a roundabout in that area. As you would note that ama-traffic lights aka-Ascot ayafavor abanye, awafavor abanye. But because also our huge haulage trucks which move there, it becomes congested. Uzuyefika e-Ascot shopping center. But once there is a roundabout, if traffic will flow smoothly. Let's move to the other one. We propose a 20-meter road to be established from 1000 Road to access the hotel site. I think I've spoken to this one. That's the road that we. It is proposed that Ascot Way be upgraded to a 4-lane road. It is also proposed that Park Road be upgraded to a 4-lane road because of the increase of the commercial activity to Park Road. World Vision, we propose that Yenu Park Road, lo Ascot Road, siba improve into a 4-way. You will find that it allows for that. The area in terms of road service, it allows for that. So we propose that the upgrading is implemented. We also propose that there be a realignment of the intersection that connects Leopold Takawira and George Avenue. Leopold Takawira or George Ujopek Road, King George Avenue. Then other roads, it is proposed that Leopold Takawira be upgraded to a 6-lane as per according to AMA 211 series. Here policymakers were saying there is nothing new that we are creating. Already Vele Ujopek Road has been provided for to be a 6-lane. But we are saying the responsible authorities, whether it's the government, because it's the national road, or where the local authority must, we are saying let's upgrade it to a 6-lane. It is also proposed that the realignment of the intersection that connects to 12th Street and George Avenue, some of us will know it as Sixvale or Escotin Road. We also propose that it be established or upgraded to a 6-lane, 12th Avenue. 3rd Street to be a 6-lane, extension of 9th Street into George Avenue, other planning directives to include addition of what we term cul-de-sacs or road closure. We try close, abanengi sikwazi ukuthi kuyini nxa ufika uphelele kokuyiround so thina sesajayela ama technical terms, but I think abanengi babe besithi yi close ku close anjo. So some we propose some in that start area. Let's move. Then it is proposed that the lane separator along King George, those of us that access King George Road from Ascot intersection be extended. Kulabantu abathi nxa bephuma eKhumalo besebenzisa uCockland Avenue ba-abuse umgwaqo King George. So to avoid that abuse, we are saying i-separator kuloku yi-barricade lokana okuncane so okuseparator eziyangapha leziyangapha. We are saying asikuqansiseni kufana nemebhila lokana kweJohannesburg. Kube kukhulu ukuthi umuntu kakwanisa ukuqansa phezulu. Kumbe ngakhuluma ngalapha eEvelyn. eEvelyn lapha abathi abayenzela khona illegal touting yamalokuzeni la. You will find ukuthi okungama barricades kethu kuncane kakhulu. So kuya encourage even umuntu ohamba ngemoto encane nxa efuna ukubalekela amapholisa nxa esefuna ukuyaphika umuntu uyachibilika khona pha. And it causes, that's why the area yethu isiba lama road traffic accidents. So we're saying the area le kusiyafika kuma traffic lights ka Ascot asifake ni barricade enkulu leya enjengalana sijayele ukuyibona eJohannesburg nxa sihamba. We're also saying let's do the same ku King George Avenue because there is a lot of abuse, but the abuse yakhona iba nzima because igcina sidala ama traffic accident. In some cases kube fatal abantu bafi. So to avoid that, we are proposing for that. We propose, not only do we propose in height, but also in length, like we have said. I've spoken to discourage cars which direct access to King George Lojopek Road. Let's move. Then also, policymakers, we propose an overhead footbridge to be established overhead to Leopold Takawira to connect Centenary Park, the museum, the amphitheater for ease accessibility by our users for recreational activities. Like we have said, not only labana abatauta, But ilathi nxa sichadisa, what do we usually do? We usually check ukuthi umgwaqo clear yini. Nxa siphuma ngapha ku CBD, sikhamba ngoJoburg Road. Singa-check ukuthi clear because we want to access i-centenary areas sifuna uthatha amapikitsha. Siyakona siyakansa khona phana gaga umuntu sekupake ngale. So it also quite a number of times ama-weddings have been disturbed because omunye wabo sechayiwe or omunye wabo sokutheni. So we propose an overhead bridge connect i-Centenary Park yethu, the museum area yethu, the amphitheater. So we're saying as long as you are parked a site in the museum, if you want to access i-Centenary, use i-overhead footbridge here. Also i-footbridge yethu sifuna ukuthi obasu Khumalo ngale housing bazayimaintaina in such a way ukuthi iba libridge ukuthi yakwanisa ukuthathela amapicture phezulu khona ngale with the view of the CBD. So cameramen they would like that view because as omakoti bethu beqansa besiya phezulu besiya thatha amapicture, there is that view ye-CBD which is not there because khathesi akula bridge, but mainly we have designed it to reduce traffic fatalities which are occurring within that start area. Then of course, social services, it is proposed that a private hospital be established along George Avenue and at the intersection of 9th Avenue. So 9th Avenue, we have proposed a hospital site, a very big hospital which will match the standards of Imata Day. As for hospital yakosithole leyana iyaphongwa isibhedlela ngathi sithole access delayed, but we want a state of the art hospital site which will match Imata Day or even more, ehamba maybe 4 or 5 stories up. So the hospital is expected to match properties around the study area, also to utilize the vertical expansion. As far as isibhedlela esiyaphongwa ukuchaya phansi, but we also want more patients to be accommodated phezulu. The hospital site is expected to match or surpass our standards Imata Day. Then we also propose that 2 hotel sites be established in the study area. I've spoken to the first hotel site, Liana Ascot intersection. Then we also propose another hotel site, Harry Allen Golf Club Lapaya. So we propose a hotel site there. We also propose, because Kulama townhouse stands that we have proposed there. So Cititina, akubele hotel kona pan. Let's move. Our public buildings, the intention is to set aside portions of land for the establishment of public buildings which will cater for the social needs of the local people. The land along George Avenue has been set aside for government institutions. This zone shall be set aside for local authority reservations for public uses such as government offices, schools and hospitals. In red lapa. The minimum subdivision shall be determined by the local authority. Similarly, the building lines, but we need parking areas within on-site. Ama open spaces, the intention is to provide considerable sufficient systems of open spaces for visual appropriateness and recreational purposes. It is proposed that certain portions of the park belt be zoned active open spaces to accommodate non-intrusive uses that will balance the use with greenness of the area for aesthetics. We are saying that when you get to Gweru, you will see play centers lawana o kuthiwa kuyini sibiza city kuyini nge-ZITF ithiwa kuyini lana ithani yeah then kulale futhi lana ijayele ukuseta up ngale Luna Park. So we propose that green spaces near the proposed townhouse stands in Khumalo be zoned for active open spaces to make it an extension of either park, play centers or other compatible uses. The development of the landscape shall be guided by the local planning authority. Then I've spoken about passive open spaces. We have said we want to maintain them. Streams anga abuswa ngabantu. Let's move. In terms of electrical servitude, fire hydrants, we propose that certain portions of land be reserved for provision of electrical servitude, some will run underground. We propose that the current fire hydrants are rehabilitated, new fire hydrants are installed. It is proposed that all hydrants be digitized with coordinates of each hydrant known and kept at fire station. Lapha sithi kuqhakathekile ngesikhathi semlilo abefire babekwazi ukuthi ama hydrants ethu angaphi.
So bengicela ukuthi njengabantu thina njengama-business njengabanye ama-business people they've got i-notion yokuthi khona they want to do their businesses in the central business district. They believe that they will catchment area yabo yabe inkulu for ama possible customers. And so how are you going to get that notion out of their mentality? Abantu abanjalo. In as much as it is a good idea in decongesting the city, but thina abantu abamnyama noma sile ngqondo ukuthi ngiyahamba ngifaka umsika wami lapha, of course not talking about vendors but talking about the real business people. What have you put in place for that?
The proposal is very good, but I was of notion yokuthi as you liqhathanisa le midrand le four ways, I think expansion local elisinika khona is just an expansion of CPT anjo. So mina bengifisa ukuthi albatha you expand it up to yabona usufika ezintabeni lapha esigodini wakafika esigodini. From there ibulawa iqalisa ukukhanya khona ba, and then from i-toll gate elokhuzene ele-Plumtree la ibulawa iqalisa ngapha ukukhanya khona ba, having ama-buildings amanye kanjani as you said amakhulu 18 meter whatever anjo, and then same lamanye nje usiyafika usiyafika intaba ziduna there uqalisa uyibona ibulawa from there. It's I propose that is a good plan, but then okunye futhi along ama-transit nolana amgwaqo le emkhulu asifuni ukubona sokuthiwa sesinika ushef laphana sele boxley store kumbe selokunye okuyilodge sokhanya abantu sokuyi-brothel like yabona emgwaqweni emkhulu yena leya. We want ama-buildings azasinika isithunzi ezobulawayo. And then my last point is sinazeleni futhi khona ngoba in the near future people will compare Mount Hampton la khona lokhu thina sikwenzayo, and then they will say but Bulawayo you were cheated. So let us have another plan ukuthi how do we have Mount Hampton go Bulawayo la, something like that. I think that's the only way somehow bangas blame abantu kusasa, because this one is an expansion of CPT, but we need another bigger city go Bulawayo eyabikhona a different angithi
thina vele silenoshinana ukuthi khona sifunti nqanisa ibusiness yami ibe ku CPT. Okay, intention yethu lapha ukuthi vele sifuna i-CPD remain as the core business area. It remain as the core business area. But bese city ngoba ngale suburbs like I said uthi khona sizavumela limited business activities. Ayisiyo wonke ama activities azabe evunyelwa lapha, like ukuthi wouldn't allow ukuthi umuntu esikhona lapha sengivula sengifuna ukuvula ibusiness ibutchery yami Ndlovu and Sons. Sabe sakhela ukuthi uvula ibutchery security engxenye ama exclusive boutiques along icorridor lapha, engxenye exclusive boutiques, exclusive restaurants, exclusive coffee shops. Laba mina eyami ngifuna ukuyivula iNdlovu and Sons ibutchery isali khona. Liyane ngifuna ukuyivula isibanda and Sons vegetable market isali khona pha lapha sivule ama limited. I local plan yethu isiba specific on ukuthi exactly sifuna ukuvula izinto ezinjani. So lezi amanye ama business activities azabe still remainer eku CBD ngale kuya kulama conditions ukuthi kwesinye isikhathi isabe sifuna into ezi-exclusive ukuthi la wonke ukuthi hayi maybe ngxenye yami le mana ngizayile khona pha such that laphana kube yilana anjani azabe where people are expected lana ukuthi la kuyabe kumele ufake imali ethize sibili as compared to ECBD. And then also nxa sengibuya kuba ku-councilinator ukuthi asiqaleleni vele from nxa ungena edolobheni kunganithi ukuthi usesebhabs ngiyona silokhu napha ukuthi sile master plan ekhayela idolobho lonke, and then besiba nama-local plan. I-local plan ihamba ikhangela iziqephu. Sengingaqalisa ngokuthi ku-Plum Road lapha kulenye i-local plan layo esinjani esiqalisayo kathesi eyabe ikhangelele from oBellevue, ngale kweBellevue ungena ngapha izabe ikhangela specific for leli ndawo, and then leyi ikhangele usukela eKhumalo sesebhabs, and then before that kuleyinye okuthiwa ngu-local plan lapha sikhangele i-portion ka-local plan 5, but kulo local plan 5 lawo onguye okhangele from nxa ungena edolobheni liside eyiyo layo esizayikhangele khona kuma-plans ethu esizayikhangele sibona ukuthi khona what do we need to review siyitshintshe njani. And then kuleyinye ngapha futhi ekhangele izindawo from kusuka kubo-airport o-local plan 10 layo ezakhangela ibona ukuthi kukelelani indawo sile-local plan 10 but maybe sesizame-expanda akhangele suka e-airport sifuna ukutshintsha senza njani. So ama-local plans each local plan iyabe ikhangela indawo isiqephu sedolobho. But i-vision yethu vele i-ultimate as uBulawayo as town plan kuyikuthi each square meter, each portion yedolobho igcine isi-covered ngeyi-local plan. So lapha sizikhangela ngambitshana ngoba i-local plan kumele ikhangele a certain small area, but with the intention of ukuthi yonke idolobho sibe sinjani sibe sesilikhavile eventually. So imbono yena le ebuyayo i-team yami yonke isinjani isivele isifaka phansi ukuthi nxa sesikhangela those areas sibe lakho also in mind ukuthi nxa sikhela uBulawayo asile sinxa uvele ungena lapho ungena khona ahlahla khanye, we take that into consideration, sesikufaka that into mind. And then also we talked about ukuthi nxa sikhayela uMount Hampton as a city we sibale land lapho okuyikho sideveloper khona as a city, or i-land private ownership where we're saying we want to create an enabling environment. Nxa singakhangela along u-airport road kule Hopeville, mina libona i-Hopeville. I-Hopeville it's now also developed, it's a small portion of i-proposal yakho. Lingabona kule bankana abalifakile abathi like Hopeville City, they are looking at creating a city within a city. So as local planning authority, they've brought more plans to us for us to look at, because we have vast pieces of land where in the near future they are proposing ukuthi baza submit also ama-plans abo esiza-approve where they want to create what you can call a city within a city. Okuyabe ku-self-contained, kulama-shopping center, kulama-complex, everything. So thina as a city there, we are playing an enabling role to enable that ukuthi udeveloper owileyo si create an enabling role, a facilitated role. So that is one aspect lapho esikhela khona uzaba ne-city within a city, kube le-self-contained city. So ama-suggestion, those imbono le are already being taken into consideration. Yeah.
I think if we revive i-Centenary Park, because if you look at Bulawayo la akula entertainment yabantwana, you got to wait for December ngase sifalo Jason Moyo sifako ngodole lokya, which is once a year to take the kids out, or to ama drive-throughs on allow esikhuluma ngawo. So maybe our first port of stop would be to revive i-Centenary Park and turn it maybe into a Gold Reef City, a mini Gold Reef City in Bulawayo.
What's the way forward for my pipes? He doesn't have to be serious. We're according to my pipes. I think you need to see catch a year.
Mina isicelo sami sinye ukuthi as we plan and agree on i-development, ku-selection yama-developers Stella Bunga create another version of a I know as councillors we are also complicit in that regard. Maybe we are the biggest culprits because siyabuya lapha size kwethu selama directors sibise onjwadi bethu baze tshona begebha ngamapiki lapho kufuneka ugebha ngama-excavators khona. Kuplanwe size siye kufa lokho kuplan ukuthi kwenziwe i-development koBulawayo. So I applaud the developmental trajectory that the city is taking, but my humble request is ithi thina ama-councillor njengoba kuzahlala phansi zokudecide ukuthi le la le iphiwa bani owakha lokhu. Ngicela ukuthi sikhetheni abantu abazadevelop uBulawayo ngesinyomule ama-interest ama-individual nama-groups in the development plan sifake uBulawayo phambili. Nathi ke siphume one day history record ukuthi ngo-2023 to 2028 kwakulama council abuya asebenza ndawonye lama directors ye-city council bafaka uBulawayo phambili ahead of individual and ulterior motives. Ngiyabonga.
There's also need to think about putting flyovers. It's more modern than roundabouts. Like Ngone Park Road is saying I might have missed there. Why not put a flyover so that motors will get via flyovers over that particular junction? That's my suggestion. In any bridge, any crosses centenary opposite, leave a gender sensitive, disability sensitive. So abantu when they are pushing nqola zabantu abakhubazekile kube lula ukucrossa that place. It's a hive of activities, but ngabona sokumhlupha ukucrossa so kuyamela thutsha ku Park Road abuye ngapha. Those are some of my few observations.
Laphana want ukuthi kuma transport corridors ku Harare Road laphana kuwakhiwe kube kungawuthutsha la ubone, so it will be key selection yama developers. Maybe I also use myself ngawungangikhetha mina if company yami ekwesindove Sons uthi ngeke uqalisele ukufundela khona phana, chances as engenza faka ngifike lapha ngihle ngiponje of which kuyabe soku-west than ukuthi kuzayele kuyi-ground engaphanga ukuthi that would be key. Kuyabe kumele ukhangele. I think ama-comments onke we've noted there.
Lawana but isikole thina engani sikwazi ukulamanzi kodwa engani, so ngingazi ukuthi kade esikuleni lingawenza ukuthi amanzi lawana anganuki since ku-under the subject area, development of that area.
I-council iyatesta vele isivula to appreciate i-content ekhona phana. We are aware those challenges are picked, but ubaba ukhona ukuthintileyo Masuku, Councillor Masuku, ukuthi infrastructure yethu as a city is dilapidated. So part of pollution esizuzayo is coming from sewer collapses esilawo within the city. So, and those need a serious investment to deal with collapsed sewers, IO as polutela environment. It's part of the challenges that we are backing with as a city as funa investment to correct the problem.
Kodwa ngithandela ukuchayela ihlombe abe planning. Then ngisithi khona Anje siyabona ukuthi lapha i-planning le ngama-ward amanye nala abanye abantu, which is ngezinye indlela ama-ward la abe phucukiswa abe developer. Lathi siphuma kwamanye amalokuzenini bakithi amanye ama-wards anje labona la wathi ngulungisa imigwaqo alidinga ulungisa amanzi ukuthi abuye. So in as much as it is good to expand Bulawayo and decongest or build another city as a Bulawayo, sicela isikhangele lathi ngapha kuma wards ethu ngoba singama councillors bakithi siyahlutshwa day in day out siya report ama sewage besinika ama reference number si report ama tower lines afile besinika ama reference number but they don't come. And this one it will give iloko zenini twakweni uyanika ama marks kuma leverage to the sitting councillors while least some of us sabe sithethiswa ngayo sithi asenze lutho senzani. So siyacela bakithi si councillor uma councillor likukhangele ngiyaqola siphuma off topic but ngithe ngikhulume ngakho nje yabo.
We are doing the local plan number 12 for Bellevue areas, and I think we're also doing part of the local plan number 5, which covers from Masocha and Luvu into the CBD.
Wonke ama-industry within the city ikhona layo ngezinsuku ezilandelayo shunyasisa Christmas break kubo January sabe sesilicela futhi ku-meetings sikhangela khona. There is ama aspects esiwakhangelayo kubo northern areas ngapha because kulezi indawo vele maybe as time goes on we'll share with yourselves i-plan esilayo for the city usikhangele, but it covers idolobho lonke. It has been noted and it covers the maybe as time goes on we'll share it which is very able to sponsor time says that so at least the balance are able to tell them that which I plan a council ukona yilokhu so likhangele ngesikhathi esinje.
I-planning enje iyabi long-term strategy, but within the long-term strategy kulama operational strategies. So ukuzimizwe yethu ihlanzeke ibe right, sigxile futhi la kuma operational strategies ukuthi sidile lama issues asihluphayo on a day-to-day basis through ama forums esivele silapho. Such forums amanye i-budget, ama feedback meetings kwaphana siyazuza sesiplana sidinga ama interventions accordingly. Thank you for this session, and thank you councillors for making your time. I know you've got busy schedules, but we appreciate your precious time and the input and feedback that you have provided that will help ukunonisa iplan le. Tina as the technical team, we are very happy to be involved in this process because at the end e-plan is a planning tool that we use to ensure and create orderly development in the city. It's a tool esisebenzisayo futhi with the ama stakeholders, ama residents to enhance the predictability of development. And once it's approved, wonke umuntu uyabe kwazi ukuthi ilapha kumilapha i-development ihambisa ngaphi. So as we shape the future townscape of Ibulawayo, the community, the stakeholders are aware ukuthi in terms of our vision, i-area le develop isiya. Kanti futhi ekugcineni if once this plan is approved, it will bring in the much needed investment into the city because it opens and creates new development opportunities. So it's one of the ways that we use as a city to bring in investment. As you can see, these zones that are being introduced, they mean money is going to be invested here. Idorobo lituthuke lama rates to ekhuphuke. So we're looking forward to this plan getting finalized through the planning processes, even approved. See the impact on future development here in our lane. I think in Malapo